can Google find the important content on your site? If Google can't get to your optimized pages, there's not much point in optimizing them. So one of the best things to do, relatively easy in fact, is to create a sitemap on your site. Just a small link at the bottom that says sitemap, and the search engines know to look there to see what pages are on what site. So it's a relatively painless way to do it. So here's Apple's sitemap, and so I mean even a big site like Apple has a sitemap to make sure that Google and the other search engines can actually get to the different pages of the site. It's not fancy. It doesn't have to have a lot of bells and whistles on it. It just needs links to the important pages of the site. Yes, exactly. Very, very good point.
Would you repeat this question?
He said it needs to be in HTML. The link shouldn't be in JavaScript or in Flash. It needs to be just straight HTML.
What's the sex in that?
It depends on how the XML is actually implemented on the site. Exactly. Oh,
And the XML is going to include HTML hyperlinks.
True, true.
They trust in the same way.
Okay, so looking at some of the elements actually on the page of the website. This is where the keywords that you've chosen come into play. You're going to be using them in the different tags on the actual pages. So for each keyword, it's usually best to choose one page of your site to focus that keyword on. Ideally, the page with content related to the keyword. That makes it much easier to rank for it. So if you optimize multiple pages for the same keyword, you'll likely run into competition within your own site. You'll start having more than one page competing in the rankings for that keyword, and it's much easier to avoid that, and it helps you rank higher on those keywords also.
Here's good. You know where you want to have your main top 5. We got the top 5. So that competition is actually good thing, and you're taking up all the real estate on the first page.
The problem is lots of times, sometimes you'll see Google list maybe like the home page of the site and then a sub-page. So sometimes you'll see Google list maybe 2 pages out of a domain. It's usually not going to rank a lot more than that. Now, if you had multiple domains, multiple different websites with different content, and wanted to target those to the same keyword, absolutely. I mean, you could take up more shelf space. It's still, Google still sees that as part of the main domain. It sees it almost as a page of that domain. So it's still, you could maybe get 2 out of it, but probably not more than 2 listings in the results there.
Okay, I encourage you to ask that question again when we get to the page part, because I'd love to talk about
He has
self-save page search.
other ways you can optimize for that. Okay. So the title tag is one of the tags that you can use to optimize the page, and this is the one that Google has the most value in. It is a little small to read. But if you're doing your web development in-house, or even if you have an outside web developer, you can say title tag. Your developer will know what they're talking about. And so the search engines, including Google, place a lot of value on this tag. Whatever you place in this tag is going to show up in the top bar of your internet browser. So it's definitely the major thing that people are seeing about your website. And including your keywords in the title tag is one of the best ways to tell Google, okay, I'm relevant to this keyword. And again, we call it keyword stuffing. Don't keyword stuff the title tag. Don't have it a list of 20 keywords. Generally keeping it to about 2 or 3 keywords per page is best. If you run into more than that, things start to look a little spammy, and if people actually come to your web page, they may not be able to read it and find information they need. So another element to look at is anchor text. And anchor text it's the bold red text in the example up here. Basically the text that's underlined, lots of times it's underlined in blue in the actual link to another page. So when you use anchor text, it tells Google, okay, the page that I'm linking to in this text is about whatever the anchor text is. In this case, we have control valves, regulators, quick opening closures, very technical terms, but it's telling Google, okay, the page that I link to, this is what it's about, and Google's algorithm analyzes this anchor text on external sites and internally within your website, and that's one of the things that makes it a more complicated algorithm than some of the other search engines. Yes?
Does the anchor text help the page it's on, or the page you're going to?
It helps the page it's going to. That's a good question. So, like in this case, CDI Solutions has a page about control valves, and so the page linked to with the words control valves is the one that's getting that value, because Google is seeing, okay, that's probably what this page is about. Same answer. So definitely when linking to the other pages of your site, you want to try and use the keywords that those pages are targeting. And that also comes into play a little bit in the sitemap. So when you're using the sitemap, if you want to link to, say on CDI Solutions, you want to link to the control valves page, instead of having a link that says page 5 or sub-page 3, you could include the words control valves there.
Is there an advantage in the site now to put it up at the top of the page versus at the bottom?
Not really. I mean, it can go either place. It's kind
Google's
of,
going to see it even if it's a very long page.
if it's an incredibly long page, putting it at the top is probably a good idea, yeah. If the page is incredibly long, you may need to show the page too. Sometimes there is a limit to how much Google
What's your
will.
limit? What's the limit with Google pretty much? What's the
And this is kind of one of those things.
very subjective?
Google doesn't publish
Google
this
doesn't want you
information,
to
you
know.
know, so we kind of do a test and see what kind of results we get, and it seems that, we're not seeing any big differences when, we put text or links at the top of the page versus the bottom. It doesn't seem to make a big difference. So we come to the conclusion it's not a big variable. How long the page is, we don't know. It's just.
It also depends on the coding size. I mean, I have, one of my clients has relatively short, in terms of screen space pages, but they have a really large menu structure at the top that has lots of menus that drop down and break out, and it takes up a lot of the actual code of the page. That's where it gets into problems, either with file size, maybe you have a huge image or a huge flash file that just takes a really long time to load. The search engines may not sit around and wait for it to load. But also, I mean, like in the case of the drop-down menu, there's just so much code that it has to plow through before it gets to the meat of the site that at some point
Just call it quits.
it calls it quits. And usually when Google gets to a page, it has a quota sort of, okay, this is the number of kilobytes I'm going to download, and the number of links that I'm going to visit on this domain.